All right. Whew, getting through it, everyone. Okay, this is the third of Season 5, Episode 1, where we're looking at Ansible iOS command. I know we could actually just do an entire 20-hour video just on iOS commands and some really interesting and cool things. However, we're going to end it here and now. It ends today. Again, all files are up in our most friendly repository. Mr. Whippy's coming, the ice cream man. Oh, so jealous. I can hear it. Feel free to go ahead, grab files, move around as you need it, remembering our path and where things are. So, what are we covering? We are going to cover setting a fact, and this is something you will do quite often. And before I jump ahead of myself and say why, this is an Ansible core module. It's not specific to using any module from a vendor like Cisco, Juniper, Brocade, FortiGate, our great friends at FortiGate. This is part of Ansible core, and let's just jump in. So, setting a module allows to set new variables as the play is executing. These variables will be available to subsequent plays during the playbook run. Remember, in a playbook, we can have multiple plays. Again, you're probably thinking, what does this mean? So, you know what? We will jump into it, and it will make more sense by doing so. So, before I move the screen to the screen area, we're going to run a multitask play again using iOS command, storing whatever we do as CLI result output. You should be very cool and familiar with register. We're going to set a fact then, which is from CLI result, passing it through an array counter. Then we're going to write this new fact to the screen using our friendly debug message. So without further anything, let's really get ahead and do this. I can go somewhere else for a moment. There I go. Now you can ignore that where I've gone ahead and done this. So let's get in and write. Once again, I'm hoping you know. Let's declare this is a YAML file. The name of our lovely YAML file. I could cut and paste this, but there's something about writing it down and taking it in as we learn. That's the way I do my uni summarization. iOS commands, vlog number 3, free interface, count, play. Yes, that I will discuss more about as we get through to it. Hosts, CPEs. You would start to think we don't have anything else in our lab except CPEs. We do though. There's not much though. We're going to gather facts. No, we're not going to gather facts. We want this to run efficiently and fast, not execute Python code on our local Linux box. It adds no value just yet. Tasks. And by the way, you could go and declare that globally. Tasks. So the first task, we're going to execute an iOS command. Task, if I could spell, task 1, issue iOS commands, show interface status, and we'll save as CLI result output. Getting sore throat. iOS, and it's not Corona. iOS command. We know this module very well. We know we can feed in a list via commands. And the one command we're going to show, well, we could have done multiple, but show int status include not. By the way, that's going to happen to you too. Okay, cat's out of the bag. What I need to explain. This particular play, we are going to iterate over devices, and we're going to pass it through a filter to tell us back to the screen how many free interfaces does this device have. This is a pretty common one that you will use. So showing status, if you're looking at a Cisco switch, for example, or even on these ISR type of routers, even the old school ones, we can get some switch port context, if you will, in the output. So, as I said, we want to register the output of that as CLI result output, becoming an expert in that you all are. Now, what we want to do next is we want to set a fact, which will be a variable for future use. We want to call this fact count. So in future, when we call this fact, we will be calling something called count. It's not Count Dracula, or if you were young, Count Duckula, or young growing up in the 70s and 80s. I think that was more 80s Count Duckula. So count it's from, why are you there? CLI result output from, remember where that all goes, standard out lines. We're looking at the first element because we've only got one element. And we're going to pass that through a filter called length. Now, what that is doing is saying count will be a new variable based on this passed through this, and length just counts the items in an array, which you will see in a second. So if we wanted to set the fact right there, that does it. Obviously that's not quite useful in itself. We need some proof in the pudding that this is doing something. So we're going to use the debug message, and we're just going to pump this to the screen. Node Ansible underscore host free interfaces, and now we declare our new fact, our new variable called count Duckula. And Ansible host, that's actually going to pull from Ansible itself. It's not going to be the host name on the running config. That is a fact. Haha, that had a double entendre assigned to it. Okay, so let's save this. Does our indent look good? I think we're looking good. We're looking good. Let's save that bad boy. Let's go over to... do you know what I don't like? When I don't remember the name of the play. As you can see, we just finished the other vlog. Let's clear. Push the up. And this is vlog 3. And you can tell I've already done the other one ahead of time. Setfact.yaml. Let's watch it set fact and brings back some text to the screen. What we're looking for is for Ansible to chuck to the screen the node and how many interfaces are free. Based on Ansible going out, pulling this information back via iOS command. Oh, that was a lot to say in one go. Let's shrink my head. No one needs me that big. Excellent. That actually went quicker than I thought. So it's reached out. It's gone and it's set. It's gone and got some information. It's set the fact. Then it's gone into our last play, which is the debug module, and it's now writing to the screen. It's saying this device has. So if we think about our config, node blah 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 has interfaces 3, which is our count variable. And again, node blah 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 has interfaces 7. Now, when you think about it, what's SPE1? It's a Cisco ASR 1111. Okay, and the other one is an 18000. Cool. So here's something I've gone and done earlier. If anyone wants to get a quick copy of the code and hasn't gone to Git, press pause. There it is right there. There. It's somewhere. It's there. And just to confirm our output, when we've run this, see it said 3 interfaces are free? When I SSH into this guy, the 1111, we indeed have 3 interfaces 3. So we've counted, well, you would hope a system like Linux and Ansible could count how many the elements within an array. So it's done that very successfully. Now, if we want to look at a when command, we covered when in vlog 2. However, here is something I also found about the when command. You can have multiple ways of satisfying a when, and we can even pass it through a filter, such as an integer count, such as the integer, your condition must be greater than an integer of 6, if you think of it in that type of programmatic code. So we can actually team these two up, and a real world one that we had to satisfy, and g'day Aaron, I almost forgot his name, has to iterate for a particular customer who's got depots all over Sydney, how many free interfaces they have on their Cisco switches. So they're doing a hardware refresh. The traditional approach is just buy 48 port switches. However, they didn't put any science to that. So what they're going to do is they're going to have a look at any switch that's got over 24 ports, and that's how they're going to apply some logic to their hardware refresh, because it is tax time. So no doubt that invoice will be backdated a few days, being the end of Australian financial year, the 30th of June. So what we can do is we can team up our plays, and we can obviously write it to screen, but we can do it. Remember the when command? We can have that when the result of a showInt status include not, pipe to include not, we pump that to a new fact. It's called count, which we've just done. However, we can have it so it debugs up to the screen only when the count is an integer greater or equal to a certain number. It obviously could be less. It could be many different things. But for that use case, we did when the number was greater or equal to 24. For my lab, even the switches have got like 43 ports. So what I've done is I've gone and modified this play to the CPEs. And why don't we just go ahead and run it? Now, I know the actual play, set fact, when. So this is going to do two things. Let's just actually go and run it. Helps if I press enter. Mr. YouTube, we're racing it right now. So it's going again. It's doing a task in iOS commands. Then it's setting the fact. Then we're running it, pumping it to the screen only when the condition is true. And our condition is it must have more than four interfaces free. If you remember, the Cisco ASR 1111 had only 3 interfaces 3. The struggle between 3, the struggle is real, son. So it has skipped. Now, if you're an operator and you had to bang away, it's just convenient to pump that to the screen. However, you could have pumped that to a file, but it's just one of those where you'll overhear a PM or an account rep saying, "Oh, I really wish we had a decent quick audit so we know what to do for this particular client." That's when you can jump to your CLI. You could have logged into every switch manually. If they've got 100 switches, if you think if a place has 10 depots, 15 depots, 100 switches, you get there pretty quick. But anyway, that is a great way to be, hey, I can probably solve this in a handful of minutes. And you can work it out. Oof. That code is up there, by the way. If you want to have a view of that, it's up on Git, and it's also there. So, that's vlog 3 of 3 ended. So, we've covered the setting a fact in that particular one. We covered when, again that rhymed. We've covered a real world scenario, just here in Sydney, looking a bit of a hardware refresh, how many ports are in use per switch, just as a kind of guide, should they be going 24 or 48, and this was for depots, if you can, things like bus stops, parks, places like that. There wasn't a lot of science that went into it really quickly, as you could see, but just a bit of a way to wet your whistle and give you a bit more exposure to Ansible. And we covered the when, so a bit of a conditional. That's just a few things you can do with iOS commands and getting a little bit tricky. Episode 2, we're starting to hit the config track. We're going to look at config backups. We're going to look at some real world of how we back up different devices, in particular Cisco, but I'll show you how when then comes into play again. The throat's killing. Anyway, cheers all. I thank you for learning, and I look forward to seeing you in Season 5, Episode 2. Peace.